Okay, so this is kind of strange. You can see all this blue. That's from hot oil. So it's basically like an inside outline. It shows a problem, but it might be something that's still reusable. So there's one of the guide pins. Here's the other one. This had to have gone into the main valve body, but I haven't figured out the location yet. And there might be more guide pins that I don't see under there. I haven't checked yet. So this is the fluid pump. This is where all the pressure comes from. So you can't replace just these gears, but this piece is replaceable. And I'm gonna replace this. It's like $8. I'll replace this because as this thing's spinning, it is wearing out the inside of this and the outside of this. So since this is the only part that's replaceable, I'll replace this just so that this doesn't go out of round. Okay, so I checked. I don't feel any wear marks on here. So it might be reusable. The only thing I do notice is this is the top side, it's smooth. And the bottom side has that groove there that looks like an oil groove to capture some oil to lubricate the bottom. Actually, I don't even know if that is the bottom. Because I think this transmission sits like this, so this, yeah, so this might be the top or the bottom. Yeah, this is the top of the transmission. This is the bottom. So this isn't actually the bottom of the transmission. And this is the bottom of this gear. So just make sure that the groove goes against the plate. Okay, so this is the correct location for the spring. And it actually goes in, it goes on the bottom of this, and that was what was pushing this valve up and down. It must be some kind of a check valve or something. Okay, so I stuck a magnet to this black stuff in the oil, and it stuck. Well, I cleaned it off, but that black stuff actually is iron filings. So it's not aluminum, it's actually magnetic. So I'm guessing it's probably bits of the bearings. So this is with the plate off, and I couldn't find any balls in here, so I think this is it, other than the bearings. So I can take this outside and pressure wash it. Okay, this is how I'm organizing all the parts. I've got that there. I've taken off those valves because I need to replace those O-rings. Got the bolts organized as best as I could. Here's the middle part of the case, and the bolts are still on there. And then here you can see how I'm organizing everything. There's the main valve, and there you can see I traced an outline of that same part, and then I put the bolts in there. That way I can work with the valve body without the bolts. I'm gonna disassemble all these clutches to replace the frictions and steels, but this way I know exactly how like where, like I know those two go together with this shaft, and that's together, and that's so that I know that those two go on top in exactly that order. And over here I have the same thing going on. Outline, put the bolts in there, and the valve body is next to it. And I try to keep everything in order, like together as much as possible. And so I know that all of those go on top of that. So basically that's how I'm keeping everything organized. Right, so I've got all of these parts here. I'm just going to pick one at random, and I'll work on this until it's done, and then I'll move on to the next part. So this is the first valve body. This was on top. Took it off, used brake cleaner and paper towels to clean both sides. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it's going back to the transmission. It just needs to get most of the dirt off. So it's clean, and I'll just set it aside. And then I'll clean this part next. Okay, just remember that there's a guide pin here and here. Okay, if we look at the side here, these are where all our valves are. So there's one here, 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 and here. And the only difference is let's see if you can see, these have clips in here, metal clips, kind of like, not really clothespins, but they're just retaining clips. So there's one in here, for all these three. And the only thing you gotta remember is, after you put these, they're probably end plugs. So put the end plugs in, put the clip in, and then get a metal pick and push the end plug towards the back. And that's how it should be seated. And this one is different from the rest because this has a seat. It's basically just a metal bar, and there's a spring here. So you have to get a flathead, compress the spring, and then push the metal seat down, and then let go of your flathead, and it should push up against the seat. Okay, just for a closer up view, here's the metal retainer, and I've already pushed, so I pushed this end plug in, and the correct way it should seat is if you just take, push down here, If you saw it go down, I'll do it again. Like that. It should seat up towards the back. Okay, we're gonna start with this one, and we're gonna work our way towards the right. And what we're checking for is to see if any of these valves are stuck, and we're gonna do that to every valve body. Also, I'm using a brass pick. It should be at least equal to this, if not softer than aluminum. So it's less risky than using steel because it might scratch up the valve or inside here. Okay, so here's the retainer. And actually, it seems like it's way too easy to take these retainers out. But I guess they don't fall out because there's probably a plate that goes over here. So the only way that they can come out is this way, but it seems like there should be more tension. That's what they look like. So we'll take the end plug out. Okay, I had a really hard time getting this out, and the reason why is it must have came from the factory like this. You can see the score marks. Might be hard to see, but this thing was basically jammed in there. And I have the same problem with this next one, the next valve too. This is even worse. This is really jammed in there. And I had to actually take a steel pick and I kind of twisted it, and you can see this steel pick is at 90 degrees because I bent it out. So this one's really stuck. And this one was really easy to get out. So you gotta be really careful about damaging these. I mean, this can be replaced, but try not to damage the valve. Okay, so I can't get this valve out. This one, the one I just took the end plug out of. It's getting stuck on one of these parts, but the thing is, it's not getting stuck past where, it's not getting stuck before where the end plug is. So basically, if the end plug was here, this valve would be free and there's no problem. But once I try to push it past where the end plug was, trying to get past that part, that's when the valve gets stuck. So the safest thing to do, I think, is just to stop, put the end plug back. Since this thing's free and there doesn't seem to be a problem, I'm just going to leave it alone. If there was a problem, I'd either have to replace the entire valve body or try to force that valve out somehow, and then possibly even have to replace that valve, because it could get damaged past that stuck part. Okay, all the valves seem to be free. I didn't take all of them out. I actually only took one, which I didn't show, but basically if you run into this problem, I would just leave it alone instead of trying to make it worse. And don't forget, there's an O-ring on here, and this valve goes into this hole right here. I looked at the TranStar O-rings, and the size seems like it's okay, but I don't trust it because the color, the OEM Honda ones are darker and they're slicker, and the ones on the TranStar look a little bit more gray and more kind of powdery. So they can't be made of the same thing. This I think it's nitrile, the same thing as black disposable gloves. And so I mean the size seems okay, but the material doesn't look the same, so I'm gonna go with OEM seals, and they're gonna be more expensive, but I don't feel like taking a gamble with it. Okay, on this valve there's two check balls, one there and one here, and there's also some kind of something there. I don't know if it's some kind of weird valve or what. But it goes right there. Looks like those two balls are right there. And there's probably seals in these two things. So just get a flathead, push the circlip inwards. It should come out, and then you should be able to get to the O-rings if there are any. And it looks like there's a guide pin here. These are Raybestos GPX frictions. And they're supposed to be twice as hard as OEM. I actually used a pick and stabbed this thing in one of these squares and also in the track. And at first I thought these were really soft because at the top it feels like it's felt. It actually looks like felt too. So I thought these were really soft, but then I did the same thing. I stabbed the OEM pads, and those did seem softer, even though they looked harder. So far it looks like these might be okay. The only thing that's different is the steels. They seem a little bit rougher, and the metal doesn't seem as quality. Because I can see kind of like pores in here. And the OEM ones, it looks like a mirror finish stainless steel. I don't think that's going to be a huge problem. And one of the reasons why I want to use these is all of their steels, they have these little notches that look like it lets oil through. So that seems like a better design. I'll think about it and see if I want to keep these or if I want to get OEM ones. Okay, just a quick note. You are supposed to soak these, but I personally think it's fine to just dip these in automatic transmission fluid until it gets soaked, and then just put it into the transmission. Because once you fill up the transmission, it's gonna get even more fluid. And then honestly, I don't think you have to put these in fluid for 24 hours. But anyways, one thing that I've heard is these things are stamped, so there's a smooth side and a flat side. So the thing is, keep them all one direction, all flat side on the same direction, and then all smooth sides in the same direction. So this one, that's the smooth side, and you can see that that's a little bit flatter. That's the flat side. So make sure that not only keep the frictions all one way, but also keep the steels the same way with the frictions. So here's the steel, and I think this is the flat side. No, actually this is the flat side, and that's the smooth side. You'll have to look at every angle, but right there you can see it's smoother on this side than that side. Okay, just to note, this is the main valve body. So you're going to take this plate off and take this plate off. Okay, the two check valve locations are, if you see this square thing, the first one is right here, and it's just a ball, and also it's sunken in so you can tell, and it's by the filter. So under here are the two pump gears. There's a guide pin right there, guide pin right here. The second check valve location is right here, and you can tell because it's open. It's the only spot that's open, and it's got a spring on top of it. So right there. And I'm extra picky that one side of the spring seems flatter than the other one. To me that seems flatter than that side. Actually this side seems flatter, so I'll put it like that. I want the flattest side possible so that it rests flat on the plate. And here's the third guide pin and the fourth one right here. So just an overview. Check ball and spring, guide pin here and here. Okay, I forgot to mention main valve body. If you flip this over, because I'm pretty sure this goes on the bottom, this is what's on the other side of this, the bottom side. So you have pump gear and the shaft for this one. That spring I already mentioned it goes on the opposite side for that valve. Here's the swing arm. And this is actually on, it goes over here. And here's the manual valve that goes inside, I think here. And the bolt locations. And the stator, which goes over here. And also, so these go under there, and so I'm guessing this plate goes, it must go under these. So the guide pin goes here. This one's for the case, that's why it's by itself. It goes to the outer edge of the case. And the other guide pin goes right here. And also, I didn't show how I tested the valves in all these valve bodies without taking any of them out. So basically I just flipped it over and I use a brass pick, and basically those are end plugs, and those are the metal retaining clips. So how I checked it was in here I just looked at anything that I can push up against. So that feels smooth to me. Instead of taking the whole thing out and possibly getting it mixed up, or having one of the end plugs get jammed and not come out, I think it's safer to test it like this. And I just spray brake cleaner over this whole thing. That's how I cleaned it. Because I haven't found like really heavy deposits on the one valve that I did take out. Let's see. For this one, I just did the same thing. Just found a place that I can push up against, and that feels free. And for all of them, I actually found that they all gave me no problems. They were working fine except for the reverse CPC valve, which is first. Okay, here's the valve that I'm talking about. I think this is the accumulator valve body. I'm not 100% sure, but this houses the reverse CPC valve. And the reason why it's different from the rest is, let's see if I can get a, it's this valve right here. Let's see, I'll just double check. Yeah, this is manipulating the whole valve, so pretty sure it's this one right here. And the reason why this one's different from all the rest is I thought it was two pieces, but what it actually is here's the end plug, and from here to here, that's actually a collar. So the shaft of the valve goes through that collar. And so when I was pushing up, when I push up against the end plug, you can see this move and this move. But let's see. But basically, the only thing that I was worried about was everything should be pushed up against the end plug here. So it seems like the spring is automatically doing that job, but just in case, just push down here a little bit. Try not to deform this spring here. Try to push up against the actual valve. And just realize that why you're seeing two movements, because you can isolate this one and this one, is because this is a collar right here. I'm pretty sure I said this already, but basically any valve body that you see that has these right here, oops, any of them that you see that have these, take a flathead right here and pry out this circlip. See, here's one end, here's the other end. Pry out the circlip. Maybe you have to stick something in here like a screwdriver and push out the valve. All of these have O-rings on them, so make sure you replace those. So this one would have it. I know that one's got one. Anything that looks like it has a tower, a cylinder tower, it probably has it. Okay, so here's one of the bags from the TranStar kit. It says country of origin, TW means Taiwan, and this one actually looks okay, but on some of them, see, when it looks like dark shiny rubber, I'm pretty sure that means it's nitrile, and I'm pretty sure that's probably the same as what the OEM is. But on some of these it looks like it's like a, okay, not these, but okay, on some of them it looks like it's like a lighter shade of gray, or it has like some kind of gray powder on it. So I'm worried that it's not actually the same material. Like this, it looks black, but this one's a shinier black. So anyways, I'm gonna order the OEM parts even though they're ridiculously expensive, because I definitely don't want these to fail.